Let me close with this. There's a lot more I know we could talk about. I wish I had a chance to take all your questions, but I'm going to get in real trouble if I do that.
President Biden preemptively pleading the fifth after his son Hunter was federally indicted on 3 gun charges for lying about his sobriety when buying a gun in 2018.
Fox News contributor Joe Concha here to weigh in. Joe, he's going to get in real trouble. But question for you, is he referring to speaking about Hunter, or is he referring to the fact that every time he opens his mouth, he is a gaffe machine?
In trouble, he says. In trouble with who, exactly?
Yeah, he's the president.
He's the commander-in-chief.
Yep.
He's the guy in charge. And what you're seeing now is this is why nearly 8 in 10 Americans do not want him to run for president again, because we don't know if he's in charge or has the faculties to do so when he actually does have to answer questions from the press. And you would think the president would give a full-throated defense of his son, but his advisor said, you can't do that. So I guess love stops at what's best for you politically in the moment, guys.
Well, there was a CNN article that was published just a few hours ago, and it's titled Biden's 2 worst weaknesses were exposed this week. Goes on to say 2 major threats to President Joe Biden's reelection, his son Hunter's legal problems, and the widely held perception the 80-year-old is too old for reelection are both causing him major pains this week. And it does go on to point out the CNN poll that showed that over half the country, 61%, do believe that he had some involvement in his son's foreign business dealings when he was vice president.
That's the thing. When Joe Biden ran for president in 2020, it was Trump's a bad guy, I'm a good guy, I'm going to bring back normalcy and honesty to the White House, and now he can't run on that anymore. And then if he wants to run on issues, well, how are things going in terms of the economy, in terms of inflation, in terms of crime, in terms of the border, in terms of education, in terms of foreign policy? This president is seen as way too soft on China. Meanwhile, we just gave, what, $6 billion to Iran? That was a ransom payment. So on the issues he's losing, and the thing about age is, it's not like wine. He's not going to get better with age. It will only get worse, and the perception is there. And we saw it with David Ignatius in the Washington Post. We saw it with Bill Kristol yesterday, Joe Scarborough. Now suddenly all these supporters of this president are now saying he should not run again. And when that criticism comes from the left, that's a whole bowl of problems, guys.
Joe, I will correct you. It's like wine that's been opened, and it gets really old and it sort of downgrades.
Boone strawberry
ale. Vinegar vibe. Yes.
Boone's nice reference.
Carly's wine.
Meantime, Donald J. Trump spoke with NBC's Kristen Welker and said this about Hunter's indictment. Watch.
Mr. President, can you continue to say that there are 2 systems of justice?
Well, I think there's no question about it. He had a plea deal that was the deal of the century. And all of a sudden that was broken up by a judge who was able to, a brilliant judge actually, who was able to see through what was happening. And it's a sad situation. I mean, nobody should be happy about this.
Thoughts, Joe?
There is a 2-tiered system. Donald Trump is exactly right. Why else would we have a Justice Department that serves at the pleasure of the current president trying to take out a guy who's looking to take his place in the Oval Office? And you see the schedule. That's what drives me nuts, right? Before Super Tuesday, one day before Super Tuesday, a critical primary, and Donald Trump will be in court. He will be in court right before the Iowa caucuses. And 2024, it's just one after the other, court dates for Donald Trump regarding all of these indictments while he's trying to run for president. And most Americans look at these indictments, they look at these charges, like with Alvin Bragg, for instance, paying off an adult film star hush money, for example. That obviously is political. We see the court date in Georgia, and is that really something that Americans are saying, boy, Donald Trump did something wrong? What, asking for a recount? You could go on and on. The bottom line is that Donald Trump is the victim of a 2-tiered justice system, and it only is bringing his numbers up and up, guys. That's the ironic part.
Really quickly, Super Tuesday, you mentioned the election as well. New Fox News polling shows that Joe Biden would lose in a hypothetical matchup if the election were held today to Donald Trump by 2 points, Vivek Ramaswamy by 1, Haley Pence as well. Ron DeSantis, Biden beats him by 3 points. Also, he would beat Tim Scott and Chris Christie. All of these numbers, though, Joe, are very close.
They are, but these are national polls, remember. And we see this auto strike in Michigan, for example. That could help decide that state. Where that state goes, probably the election goes. Or Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona. In those swing states, Joe Biden's in even deeper trouble, and it comes down to those states. Let's face it. If he's trailing now nationally, he's in big, big trouble.
Need a quick answer here. Do you attribute this to the fact that it seems like even the mainstream media is unable to run cover for Joe Biden anymore because you really can't run cover for this kind of an economy in this kind of country right now?
You can't run cover, and I can't believe the Giants are favored this weekend in Arizona.
Speaking of covering,
yes.
Think they'll cover?
No.
Oh.
And the Jets will cover in Dallas.
There you go.
Let's make this a daily thing.
Sports predictions as well.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.